Jim Croce's life came to a tragic end at just 30 years old when he was involved in a plane crash, leaving behind his wife, Ingrid, and their young son, Adrian James. However, the heartbreaking details surrounding this dreadful incident are less well known. Jim was an emerging talent in American folk and rock music, renowned for his songs like Bad, Bad Leroy Brown, and I Got a Name. And what is the secret behind his accident? Let's find out together right now. Born on January 10, 1943, Jim Croce grew up in a close-knit Italian-American family in South Philadelphia. However, music was his true calling. While raised in Upper Darby, just outside Philadelphia, Jim immersed himself in a diverse musical landscape, influenced by everything from opera to jazz. It was a guitar gift from his parents that opened the door to genres like R&B, rock and roll, blues, and folk, shaping his unique sound that would propel him to fame. Despite his passion for music, Jim's parents envisioned a different path for him. After completing his education at Malvern Preparatory School, he enrolled at Villanova University, aiming to study psychology and German. As the first in his family to attend college, his academic journey was impressive, but it wouldn't overshadow his musical dreams for long. At Villanova, Jim didn't just blend in as a student, he took on the role of a disc jockey for the campus radio station, WKVU. One of the highlights of his radio career was interviewing Mississippi John Hurt, a musical icon for him. Their jam session left a lasting impact, reminding Jim of his true aspirations. When he wasn't hitting the books, he led the Villanova Singers, the college choir, sharing his voice on campus and beyond. He also performed with a group known as the Villanova Spires, which had a side project called the Coventry Lads, where he began to embrace the spotlight more fully. Jim and his college choir buddies impressed Villanova so much that they selected them for a foreign exchange tour. Before he even hit the charts, Jim found himself performing across Africa, the Middle East, and Yugoslavia, fully diving into the touring lifestyle. He noted that even though the audiences didn't speak English, genuine emotion in a song transcended language. He truly sang from the heart, but this was just the beginning of his journey. In November 1963, Jim attended a hoedown in Philadelphia to judge a music contest, unaware that this day would alter his life forever. One of the contestants was a 16-year-old named Ingrid Jacobson, and her voice captivated him. After her performance, Jim, usually a smooth talker, stumbled over a microphone cord and then fumbled his words as he awkwardly suggested she consider singing rock and roll. Surprisingly, this clumsy approach worked, and despite the initial awkwardness, Jim felt a strong connection to Jacobson. They started dating soon after, and it wasn't long before they were harmonizing together. At a party hosted by a friend, Jim performed solo and then invited Jacobson to join him on stage. As they sang for Canada, particularly the line about being together by the river, it was clear they were in sync, not just musically. The atmosphere grew intimate, and Jacobson's friends noticed the chemistry between them. Just as they were about to take the moment to new heights, Jim's brother barged in, asking to borrow his car. This interruption disrupted the allure of the romantic duet. Determined to keep the mood alive, he finished his set with Johnny Mathis's One Tooth of Never and led Jacobson into a dimly lit hallway, where snow fell gently outside. Jacobson later described this moment as feeling like they were trapped in a snow globe, though she lamented how easily they could shatter. Jim thought he was about to take their relationship to the next level, but his brother struck again. This time, a friend knocked on the bedroom door to say that Jim's brother had gotten the car stuck in a snowdrift, ruining his romantic plans. Jim's brother wasn't the only obstacle in his relationship with Jacobson. Their backgrounds posed challenges as well. Jim came from a devout Italian Catholic family, while Jacobson was Jewish. However, for love, Jim converted to Judaism in 1966 before they got married. His parents eventually accepted Jacobson, but were less thrilled about his passion for music. Despite their reservations, they celebrated the couple's marriage by gifting Jim $500 to help him record his debut album. Jim took the $500 gift from his parents and transformed it into 500 copies of his self-produced album, Facets. While they had always encouraged his musical dreams, deep down, they wished he would pursue a more secure career. They hoped that by giving him the money, Jim would fail in his album venture, pushing him to abandon his musical aspirations in favor of a traditional job that would utilize his college education. But they underestimated his talent. Instead of flopping, Jim's debut album turned out to be a resounding success, and he sold every last copy. Even with his success, his father remained skeptical about his son's choice to enter the entertainment industry. He acknowledged Jim's efforts but warned him that the music scene was small time compared to the big leagues, filled with unscrupulous characters. He cautioned Jim against getting involved, believing that the entertainment world would lead him astray. Tragically, those words would prove to be eerily prophetic. Despite facing challenges in their careers, Jim and Jacobson were deeply in love. During their honeymoon, they couldn't keep their hands off each other. After 2 days of endless romance, Jacobson jokingly complained, and Jim playfully apologized for being so passionate, suggesting a simple pizza dinner. Little did they know, their time together was already limited. Jim's musical journey hit another snag when he faced the draft. Just a week after their honeymoon, to avoid being sent to Vietnam during the height of the conflict, he enlisted in the Army National Guard in New Jersey. This decision meant spending the next 4 months away from his new wife. It quickly became clear that Jim was far more suited to music than military life. His rebellious spirit clashed with the strict discipline of boot camp, forcing him to repeat basic training. Yet he maintained his humor, joking that he'd be ready if they ever had to defend themselves against a mob. After completing his National Guard service, Jim returned home and merged his two greatest passions, music and Jacobson. From the mid-1960s onward, the couple performed as a duo, covering folk classics before eventually writing their own songs, which marked the beginning of Jim's songwriting journey. It felt like their love was destined to propel them to the top of the music charts. In 1968, they decided to take a leap of faith for their musical dreams. Following the advice of music producer Tommy West, they left Pennsylvania for New York. They quickly settled in the Bronx and recorded their debut album, Jim Ingrid Croce. The Big Apple proved to be a tougher nut to crack than Jim and Jacobson had expected. To promote their album, they embarked on a grueling tour that took them across the country. Jacobson noted that they traveled over 480,000 kilometers, playing in small clubs and gaining traction on the college concert circuit. However, the relentless pace began to strain their relationship, forcing them to confront a tough choice: pursue their music career or protect their marriage. The harsh realities of the music industry left them feeling disheartened, yet they recognized that their bond was what truly mattered. In a bid to make ends meet, the couple sold all but one of their guitars and returned to the serene Pennsylvania countryside. It felt as though their dreams of becoming a successful husband and wife duo had dimmed. They settled into a charming old farm in Lindell, but Jim, unlike Jacobson, needed an outlet for his musical passion. He managed to snag a gig at a local dive called the Riddle Paddock, earning a mere $25 a night. This paltry sum wasn't enough to cover their expenses, so Jim sought other work to put food on the table. With bills piling up, Jim had to juggle multiple jobs. He tried his hand at driving trucks, working construction, and teaching guitar. To his surprise, these everyday jobs sparked inspiration for the future hits like Big Wheel and Workin' at the Car Wash Blues. However, the risks associated with these gigs were high. A friend named Bill got Jim a job painting an elevator shaft, knowing he wasn't afraid of heights, specifically, the prospect of falling from them. In a twist of fate, Jim survived a dramatic 2-story fall, landing in wet cement. He later joked about it as one of his more memorable mishaps. Bill also recounted a close call when Jim nearly missed a pivotal moment in his life. One day, Jim came to assist Bill with a new roof. They spent the day drinking and hammering, though it quickly turned into more drinking than actual work. Bill remembered the moment vividly. He turned his back for just a second, only to hear a sudden whoosh. When he turned around, Jim had vanished from his spot, teetering on the edge of the roof. Despite the frightened look on Jim's face, he still held onto his drink tightly, which proved his wild spirit. Bill rushed to help his friend Jim, but he arrived too late. By the time he reached the edge of the roof, Jim was hanging on by the gutter pipe, one hand gripping it while the other reached up, still clutching a glass. Bill noted that Jim's grip was slipping. Sure enough, Jim lost his hold and fell. In a surprising twist, Bill later recounted that Jim executed a perfect backflip and landed on his feet, miraculously managing not to spill a single drop of his drink. The year 1971 marked a turning point for Jim. His wife, Jacobson, was expecting their son, Adrian James, and he realized that his aspirations of turning folk dreams into rock stardom were fading. However, inspired by his daily life, he recorded a cassette of new songs and sent it to a friend in New York. This move would change everything for him. The cassette caught the attention of a major label. Between 1972 and January 1973, he released 2 albums, You Don't Mess Around with Jim and Life and Times, both of which featured hit singles that climbed into the top 10 on various charts and became radio favorites. One song stood out, Time in a Bottle. Written on the same night he learned of Jacobson's pregnancy in 1970, he dedicated this poignant folk song to his wife and unborn child. Yet the lyrics, "There never seems to be enough time to do the things you want to do," took on a haunting significance in light of what lay ahead. In late 1972, as his fame began to soar, Jim relocated his family to San Diego. He made his national television debut on American Bandstand, and just 2 days later, he appeared on The Tonight Show, followed by performances on The Dick Cavett Show a few months later, just before the release of Life and Times. Little did he know, this was merely the calm before the storm. With his rising popularity, Jim embarked on a nationwide tour with his guitarist, performing at college campuses, coffee houses, and festivals. Despite his dreams coming true, Jim's financial situation remained unstable. He may have recalled his father's old advice, as the record label had given him a generous advance to help produce his albums, but it turned out to be a poor business deal. Even with concert revenues and royalties pouring in, he found that most of his earnings were funneled into paying off debts. The only solution he saw was to earn even more money. Jim's fame extended beyond the U.S. In the summer of 1973, he went to London to perform on the Old Grey Whistle Test, a famous music program in England. There, he introduced songs from his upcoming album, I Got a Name, and promoted his forthcoming tour. The demanding schedule of his Life and Times tour pushed him to his limits. By 1973, he was performing over 300 concerts a year, leaving little time to rest or spend with his wife and son. The relentless pace drained him both physically and emotionally, making him question whether he should have been more cautious about what he wished for. He realized that as he climbed the charts, he drifted further away from his young family. Life on the road had its ups and downs, but for Jim, things were looking up. His fame was skyrocketing, and he had the groupies to prove it. He once shared a hilarious story about a group of women who approached him during a tour with a rather peculiar request. They were on a quest to create plaster molds of their favorite rock stars, but they weren't interested in Jim's face. With his playful spirit and a willingness to embrace his newfound stardom, he decided to humor them. However, it quickly became clear that their intentions weren't innocent. They wanted a mold of his, shall we say, private parts. Jim found the whole situation bizarre and ended up writing a song titled 5 Short Minutes inspired by that encounter. Not everyone was thrilled about it, though. During one of his rare breaks from touring, Jim recounted the story to Jacobson, sharing details about the song he'd crafted, but Jacobson was far from impressed. She confronted him, questioning how naive he thought she was. Life on tour had taken its toll on her too, and during their heated exchange, she announced, "Jim, I'm going to have another baby." Jim, frustrated, shot back, "Well, have it your goddamn self," before storming off with his guitar. That moment marked a shift in their relationship, making it clear that they wouldn't find their rhythm again. After that outburst, Jim returned to his touring life, with only a few shows left on the schedule. Following a concert at Northwestern State University, he was on the brink of a significant milestone, the release of his new single, "I Got a Name," just hours away. Unfortunately, he wouldn't live to see its debut. After the Louisiana concert, Jim and 5 others boarded a charter Beechcraft E-18S, heading to Sherman, Texas. On board were his guitarist, the tour manager, road manager, comedian George Stevens, and the pilot. The flight was tragically brief. The plane took off shortly after 1 p.m. from Natchitoches Regional Airport, navigating through foggy conditions. Just moments later, disaster struck. The pilot, Robert Elliott, failed to notice an obstruction, which led the Beechcraft to crash into a tree seconds after takeoff. The rising star of folk music met a tragic fate that day. By the time emergency crews arrived, it was clear that no one on board had survived. An investigation revealed troubling details about the pilot. Not only were the weather conditions poor, but he also suffered from severe coronary artery disease and had run 3 miles to the airport before the flight, which likely compromised his ability to fly. Sadly, his health issues and the adverse conditions led to a tragic end for Jim Croce. The real heartbreak came after the chaos had settled. Just a week after the crash, Jacobson received a final letter from Jim, written shortly before the accident. In it, he expressed his desire for a different life upon his return, promising that they would build a future together. He mentioned stepping back from his fame and leaving music behind. The letter closed with a haunting line, "Remember, it's the first 60 years that count, and I've got 30 to go, just as planned." Even in the wake of tragedy, Jim's record label launched "I Got a Name" the day after the crash. The heartbreaking events from the previous night transformed this timely song into a heartfelt anthem for fans mourning his unexpected loss. His son, Adrian James, captured the essence of his father's journey perfectly, noting that it took a decade for Jim to achieve what many see as an overnight success. And indeed, he found great success. That wraps up our video on Jim Croce. If you liked what you saw, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'll be back with a fresh video soon.